That way we can have it in case somebody isn't able to make it tonight. Um, so a little bit about SORBA. We are the largest mountain bike nonprofit in the Southeast. SORBA covers 7 states, so Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. We have 47 chapters and approximately 9,000 members. This is one of those things that a lot of people just kind of fudge a lot, but as it states right now, we are at 47 chapters and 9,000 members. We currently have 2 paid employees, myself. So I am Philip Darden. I am your executive director. I am the former associate director of SORBA. I was a founding vice president and then president of my local chapter camp here in Auburn and Opelika, Alabama. I was also the Alabama rep for a little while on the SORBA board. Obviously, I'm a mountain biker, but I'm also a runner and a photographer. Our other full-time employee is Casey. Oops. Let's see how to make this work. Hold on. I can't find my mouse and do that at the same time. We'll do it this way. Too far. Far enough. All right. So Casey is our operations manager. She is an accountant by trade, also a professional mountain bike racer, an active member of AMBC in Knoxville, Tennessee, and is a very exuberant dog mom. And here she is. She is on. And she knew we were talking about her. Hey, Casey, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Ooh, yeah. What? Start the video. Yeah, my name is Casey Armstrong, but now Casey Fulbright. I do all the accounting, the bookkeeping. I also race bikes for a living for Juliana. Yeah, love AMBC. I love that Philip put that I'm a dog mom on here because that's one of my favorite things is hang out with my dogs. Yeah, but if you guys have anything question-wise for accounting, bookkeeping, which we'll get into that later, they're for me. So, yay.
We will be hiring another employee in the near future. The SORBA board of directors and a few key people throughout the organization went through some strategic planning last month. We finalized that document tomorrow evening, and we'll start the process of our next hire through SORBA sometime in the near future. So be on the lookout for that. What we're going to cover tonight is a brief history of SORBA. I like history. I think history is interesting, and it's also nice to just know where we're coming from and know where we've been. What the IMBA-SORBA relationship is, how to basically run your chapter, the SORBA resources and our Google Drive, the chapter leader dashboard, which is on the IMBA website, what our insurance covers, SORBA annual meetings, requirements to maintain 501c3 status, and tools to track your volunteer hours. So, next up.
See terrain and I see an opportunity to do something.
And if you don't mind, when you come on, pop yourself on mute. That would be awesome.
Sorry.
All right. So SORBA began in 1989 in the Atlanta area. We are roughly the same age as IMBA. In 1995, SORBA had its first chapter in Gainesville, Georgia. And then the first chapter outside of the state was CSRA, which is Augusta, South Carolina. So Georgia, South Carolina border in 1999. The first paid executive director was in 2008. In 2014, SORBA hired its its second full-time position. in 2017, SORBA and IMBA kind of had a split. So they were together, you see, for roughly 10 years. There were some issues on the IMBA side of things with finances, and we split. But SORBA maintained our nonprofit status throughout that entire process, which allowed us to continue on. And here we are today with 47 chapters and 9,000 plus members. So if you're unfamiliar with who IMBA is the International Mountain Bike Association, and they are more or less a parent organization to what we do. SORBA, its own independent organization, participates in the IMBA local program. So each one of you have access to the IMBA local program through SORBA. And a lot of times people will say that they're a chapter of IMBA. So, you know, when they're talking about their SORBA chapter, they say, you know, we're a chapter of IMBA. Well, that's just not correct. IMBA no longer has chapters. If you want to refer to yourself as something, you're a SORBA chapter. And you can also just refer to yourself as your organization, whatever it might be. And as an affiliate organization of IMBA, you get access to their chapter leader dashboard, which is how you maintain and communicate to your membership. Membership dues, so that $39 for an individual or $50 for a family membership, gets split 3 ways between SORBA, IMBA, and your chapter. 40% goes to the chapter, 40% goes to SORBA, and 20% goes to IMBA. What that does is the 40% that goes to SORBA pays for my salary. It pays for our collective insurance that SORBA provides. It pays for a lot of our meeting expenses and chapter expenses, and then the 20% goes towards the IMBA local program, which maintains that chapter dashboard and the additional perks that you can get through the website. As part of the IMBA membership, you do get benefits to discounts. If you haven't paid attention to that when you logged in for your own personal membership, you get discounts through Expert Voice, and then Spot Injury. There's a Subaru VIP program. All those things are listed on the IMBA website if you need to reference those, but there are some pretty solid deals throughout there. The Spot Injury insurance, if you haven't looked at that, that's like one of the best. It's super cheap. I think it's like $80 a year, and you get $25,000 in coverage if you get hurt while riding your mountain bike. Moving into how to run your chapter. So a lot of you are going to be chapter leaders, and you want to follow what your bylaws state. If you don't know where your bylaws are, if you haven't read your bylaws, you might want to try to find those. If you don't have them and you don't know where to find them, you can send me an email, and I should, fingers crossed, be able to dig up your bylaws somewhere. You need to maintain at least an executive board, which is a president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. You can have additional board seats, but that is usually delineated within your bylaws as to how that works. You need to host regular meetings. So you have board meetings and you have open membership meetings. Again, that's going to be stated in your bylaws as to how regular those are held and how often they are held. No surprise, elections also in your bylaws. It will dictate when you held your elections, how often you hold them. Do you do it every year, every 2 years? What are your terms? Do you have any term limits on your positions? So on and so forth. Every time you have a meeting, so anytime there's an official meeting held for your chapter, you need to make sure to have meeting minutes. This is one of those things that is incredibly important because it does a number of things. It helps you keep track of what happens with your organization and the history of your organization. It gives you information that you can go back to in case you need it, as far as like what conversations were had when, if there was any decisions made on specific trail features, you name it, it's usually in the meeting minutes. Additionally, as a nonprofit, you need to be as transparent as possible. And posting your meeting minutes in a public location is generally encouraged. It's not something that you have to do, but it is encouraged to make sure that you keep that transparency going. If you need any examples of bylaws, of how to host a meeting, of how to take minutes, all those are located on the SORBA website on sorba.org/resources. And that leads us into the next section. The SORBA website, again, has example documents for everything. It has example MOUs, it has, which is a memorandum of understanding. It has example RFPs, which are requests for proposals, or RFQs, which is requests for quotes. We try to be government adjacent, so we love acronyms, and we really should have this whole database of acronym definitions. Each chapter in SORBA has their own Google Drive through SORBA. And so you have your own personal login, you have your own chapter login, folders, you can put whatever information that you want. The only thing that we ask is that you also have a shared file, and in that shared file you keep your meeting minutes, you keep your tax documents, and you keep your Secretary of State filings. And again, if you have any questions about anything, just shoot me an email. I usually can find the answer to it. This is what the SORBA resources page looks like. And one example of one of the sections that we have that has a number of documents that you can reference. We put this just up for anybody. I believe in sharing information, and I believe in making information available to anybody. So even if they are or are not a SORBA chapter, and you have an organization, that you're talking to that's in Washington State, whatever, send them to our website. We want to be a resource for people to be able to get their organization where they want to be. This is an example of what a Google Drive looks like. So if you have not accessed your Google Drive, again, just reach out to me. Let me know. I can get you your login if you don't have it. Over here on the left-hand side where it says Shared Drives, that's where you'll click and you'll upload all your meeting minutes, all your financial documents like your tax returns. You don't have to put your bank statements in there. I don't really care to see that. But your tax returns and your Secretary of State. There's also going to be access to the regional SORBA drive from that Shared Drives page, which has a whole nother level of documents that you're able to access. The IMBA Chapter Leader Dashboard. So this is where you can manage your membership. You can view what your membership totals are, how much money you're bringing in as a chapter. It's a great communication system to communicate with not only your membership, but contacts. And then you can also just whittle down and get into individual people's contact information if you need to get in contact with them. If you are a chapter leader and you do not have access to the back end of the chapter leader dashboard, please send me an email and I will get you set up on that. One of the things to look at is where it says admin. So the admin person will be able to add you. I used AMBC because alphabetical order, and they're the first one that I can click on. But as you can see, they have their president, vice president, executive director, and then 2 board members listed on there. This is an overview kind of graph of their membership. So it gives you a plot to see how your membership compares to the 2 years previous. As you can see in November, during their Fall Fest, when we had our fall meeting at Knoxville, they had a huge jump in membership. And one thing to also note about membership is that individuals have the ability to be members of multiple chapters now. You don't have to just be a member of one organization. So, for instance, I have friends that live here in Auburn, Alabama, but they also visit, let's say, Brevard on a regular basis, and they want to support the chapter in Brevard. They can join both chapters and support both organizations, and the membership dollars go to both organizations. It doesn't just go to the one chapter. That's still something that I don't think a lot of people take advantage of being memberships of multiple chapters. This is a screenshot of how the email system works. You can set up templates. You can set up how emails are triggered. And you can compose an email from a template and see the history of emails that you have sent. This is just like a dead set overview. If you need a really in-depth look at how this works, send me an email. We'll schedule a time where we can together go through it in depth, and I can show you the ins and outs of how this works, and we can just do like a click through. But we have a lot of stuff to cover tonight, and it would just take too long to be able to go over it. But you need to know how your email system works and how the chapter leader dashboard works. Send me an email. We'll schedule a time and we'll go over it. The resources page on your chapter leader dashboard is also a huge resource of documents, information on what you can use, apps you can use, example documents, PDFs, you name it. There's a ton of stuff on there. I would suggest going in, clicking through, making sure that you can get access to it, and just reading a whole bunch of information. The SORBA insurance. It is something that we talk about all the time, and it is probably my least favorite topic of all time. It's one of those necessary evils. I hate how much time we spend on it. I hate how much time we deal with it and the whole concept of insurance, but that's just my personal beef with it. But SORBA does provide insurance for your chapter, and what that insurance covers are work days and chapter activities. Chapter activities include officially sanctioned group rides, so organized group rides and social events. And what that does not cover, and what our general policy does not cover, are races, clinics, general use of the trails. So Joe Schmo just out there riding the trail on a Tuesday, jump jams, or any sort of competitive event. Our insurance just simply does not cover that. This is something that I think that there is a ton of confusion about what SORBA's insurance does and doesn't do. And I want to make it very clear that our insurance policy does not cover general usage of the trails. So if you have communicated that with your land manager, or if you've communicated that with your chapter, that's not the case. There's no way to cover that liability. One of the things that we are working on in the SORBA level is to get a bill passed in all of our states that extends the liability recreational use statutes to volunteer organizations that volunteer their time to maintain trails on public land. If you're unfamiliar with this, and Jim could probably do a better job of explaining how this works because he's a lawyer and I am not. But the recreational use statutes protect land managers and the recreational uses of the trails on people's property. Depending on your state, it could also be private property. And it protects them from being liable. The coverage is different in different states. Some states you can do more or less whatever and not be liable. Some states there is a duty of care. But again, there's coverages that the land manager gets and civic entities get that volunteer organizations don't get, and we're trying to change that. SORBA annual meetings. So SORBA hosts 2 annual meetings per year, one in the spring, one in the fall. We try to move the meeting location to a number of different locations throughout the Southeast and highlight the trails in your area. If you or your chapter is interested in hosting a meeting, we would love to send you an application to host that meeting. There are some requirements from the host chapter, and some of those requirements are like volunteers and being able to provide meeting space and so forth. But it's a great way to get people to your trail system, to have people involved at your local chapter that aren't normally involved. Get your local tourism bureau involved with the event. Attendance is required from 1 chapter member per chapter to both meetings. We've been fairly lenient on that in the past, but we're going to kind of put the hammer down on it more because let's just face it, if you can't send a member to a meeting twice a year, we need to have a conversation about what you and your chapter are doing. These meetings are great. You meet other leaders throughout the Southeast. We do a really pretty decent job about providing good information. For instance, the next meeting in April at Old Fort is going to highlight a lot of the trails. We're doing it in partnership with the Alliance, also known as Northwest North Carolina Mountain Bike Alliance. I think that's right. We are also providing educational opportunities. So we have lined up 2 trail crew leader training classes and a chainsaw certification course. Additionally, with this summit, we're also probably going to do a bridge building course, which I don't think SORBA has ever offered before. And there's the potential to do a rock armoring course as well. We have 2 days worth of sessions available, and these sessions are going to cover anything from developing your own RFP, so request for proposal. We're going to have a session on how that works, to developing a diverse rider group. We're going to have a panel discussion with different organizations across the Southeast who focus on really diversifying the ridership in their local area. Registration for this will go out probably sometime next week. I'm finishing it all up and want to get it out sooner than later. We finished some of the last minute details this past weekend, and I feel like we're in a pretty good place. So, next thing we're going to cover is how to stay nonprofit compliant. And these are part of the requirements to be just SORBA compliant. Again, send a representative to both SORBA meetings a year. You must maintain at least 50 members. That we actually fudge a little bit. Like if you live in a smaller area, your chapter's in a smaller area, and you guys are effective regardless of how many people you have, we let that one slide. You need to review your land manager agreements annually. Uploading all your meeting minutes, MOUs, tax documents, Secretary of State, all those things to the Google Drive. Again, everybody has their own login. Make sure that all chapter board members have signed the SORBA Code of Conduct. If you do not have the Code of Conduct, it again is on the sorba.org/resources, or I can email it to you afterwards, and I'm going to send some follow-up documents which will include the Code of Conduct. And then Casey will go over a little bit about the financial stuff.
All right, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So yes, every year as a nonprofit, you guys are going to have to file a 990. I'm sure a lot of you guys know that. For a lot of you too, you'll file the 990 in, which is under 50,000 in gross receipts that you bring in. anything over that, you're going to have like the easy 990 easy. But if you bring in over 200,000, you're going to have to follow like the full form of a 990. After you file the 990, make sure that you upload that to the Google Drive in the regional SORBA folder, because there are some of chapters that the last one filed was 2020 or 2019. So if you keep not filing your 990, you'll lose your nonprofit status. And if you guys have any questions about getting that filed, just let me know. And then every year you have to make sure that you are in compliance with your state, and each state is a little bit different. And I actually found this rad website that you just click your state and it will connect you to the list that you need to make sure that you're doing for your nonprofit status, and it will link that over. But everyone's going to have to file an annual report with the Secretary of State. In Tennessee, we have a control number. It's pretty easy to put in all the information. A lot of people will also, I think Georgia, you don't, but like Tennessee, we have to make sure that we file the charitable registration renewal. So like going to this link, Philip and I will send out to all of you guys. Just click the state and just make sure that you're going down that list and making sure you're getting it done. A lot of it is just literally uploading your 990 to the website for the state too, which is pretty easy. So that keeps you in connection for the state, the IRS. What else was I going to say? Some of you guys, the end of the year is June. Some of you guys, the end of the year is December. So just make sure the 990s are filed, 4 months after the end of that fiscal year. If not, make sure the extension is done. Well, I think that actually makes it sound super easy, but if you guys do have any questions, I would love to give out my email. You guys have it, so you can email me. And I really do feel like the website I found is great. You just click your state, make sure you go down the list at the end of the year. And if you have any questions, just let me know. And make sure that you upload your 990s when you file them to the SORBA regional drive. And I think that's it. Unless, Philip, you want me to touch on something else. Do you want me to touch on the insurance?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, just here in the next little bit, we are going to send out that spreadsheet for the insurance for the next year. And you have to go down that list and make sure that you are, sorry, I was reading the comment. But anyway, just make sure that the information is correct in that and then send it back to us. What did the chat say? For the 990N, it's a 50K or less. Yep. Correct.
But it's an average, Casey.
What?
It's an average over 3 years though, right? So if you have 1 year that's over, doesn't mean you have to do 990 easy. So if you have 2 years that are 20 and 1 year that's 60, you're still under that average for the 3 years, right?
I think if you're pretty close to 50 with that average, yes. But if you're, I don't know if it is. Let me just read this again. I was pretty sure that it's just yearly basis. If you're over 50,000, you filed the 990 easy. But you could be right that if 1 year you bring in 60 and it's super close, it might be fine. But everything I've known has said that, but I could follow up with that as well. So.
Yeah, that'd be good to know because we were following that based on some reading we had done. Because sometimes if you get grant money, right, you could have a big and then spend it all next year, right? So that's why.
Right. But I mean, a big thing too, is if you get a big grant, for example, say you get a grant that's over 75,000, you got to make sure that you get audited statements. So that would then mean you're definitely filing the 990 easy. So it just depends. So that is a good thing to know too. Like if any of you all are getting money from the government, like the state, the government of any source that's over 75,000, you guys got to make sure that you also turn in audited financial statements at the end of the year. I don't know like if that even pertains to anybody, but I feel like it does to one of our chapters. So, but we can follow up on that. But I do feel like if you do over 50,000, it's a 9-9 easy. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, so the spreadsheet Casey was referring to is the additionally insured spreadsheet. And we're going to be sending that out shortly for you to review to make sure that the information there is correct. If you have any changes in land managers or additions to land managers, we need that information. And if you have dropped a land manager, we also need that information. So we'll be sending that out in the next week or so to make sure that we get all that information in when we renew our insurance. Thank you, Casey.
Yeah.
So keeping track of your trails. One of the things that I am shooting for is to at least the majority of our chapters be unified in how we track volunteer hours and we track what goes on our trails. And I am suggesting that we use Trailforks. It's a free app. It's an app that most people already have on their phone. Yes, there is a paid version of it, and the paid version of it gets you outside of 60 kilometers of your area. But it also has just like really, really great analytics involved, not only with trail work, but the people that come in and ride your trails. So for instance, again, I used Knoxville as an example because I was in Knoxville when I was making this. And you can see on this screen, they show you the gender of visitors, the age, where they came from, what type of trail they're riding, how many rides they did per month, unique riders. I mean, there's so much data in this. If you scroll down on this page, it'll show you like what bikes people are on while they're out there riding on your trails. Like, it's mind-blowing the data that they collect. And so I would like for our chapters to start using this as a way to report their trail work. A volunteer can go in and enter in their volunteer hours from their phone, directly from their phone, without collecting a data point or without a kiosk. You can, if there's an issue on the trail, so say there's a tree down, you can take a picture of it, you can enter it in through Trailforks, and it collects a database of trail issues, and then your trail boss can go in and get rid of it if it's been taken care of, and then also log their volunteer hours while they're out there on the trail. It puts it geo-referenced based on the map, so they know exactly where the issue is as well. It's an incredibly robust system, and I've got a great video that will be one of the follow-up documents that we send out that Willie goes through how to just do volunteer hours. Willie Jacobs is our contact with Trailforks, and if you were at the fall meeting, you know that he was great. And he will, without a doubt, run through the system with any chapter that's interested in using it. He's available all the time, easy to work with, extremely knowledgeable about the platform, and all he wants to do is just have people use it. And it's totally free for chapters to use. Additionally, if you're going to be the trail admin, a lot of times they'll throw that pro membership for whoever your trail admin is. They'll give you a free pro membership for the year, which is a nice perk if you're the one in there helping collect all the data. So with that, I'm going to really harp on the fact that your chapter leaders, we're mountain bikes. let's make this fun and positive. Like, we're not out there to have a bad time. We're not out there to tell people that they're not doing what they're not supposed to be doing. And we're going to have a good time. We're going to ride bikes. We're going to build really great trail. And we're going to be a fun organization to want to be a part of. And that's like, at the base level, that's where I want SORBA. Fun and positive. And I want our chapters to be that embodiment in their local community. So we have roughly 20 minutes left, and I really want to open it up to questions. That's one of the big things that I wanted to go through and answer questions. What I am going to ask you to do is use the hand raise button if you know how to use it. If not, throw your question in the chat, and I'll also try to look at that and keep it all square. But please, now is your time to ask whatever pertinent question you might have about SORBA and your chapter and anything.
I can't find the hand, so I'm just going to speak. Sorry.
You got it. Go for it.
That's a good lead in to where I'm going. My ability with technology is terrible. So I am going to delegate the whole SORBA Google Drive, SORBA Dropbox. I know how to do our own Dropbox, but I'll have somebody reach out to you to try to make sure we've got that squared away. Somebody who's under 30.
Yeah, I think that that's fair. And you've got, Doug, you've got, just from having a meeting with you and your crew, you've got a few people under 30 that should be able to handle that, right?
Yeah, we've got a few techies, so it's great for a Luddite like me.
Cool. And again, if anybody has technological issues, I can run through it and hold your hand and try to get this figured out. I'll be happy to do that. Let's go with Stan.
Hi, Phil. Good presentation so far. It's the most concise SORBA orientation I think I've ever heard. So good job on that. But I have a question about on our insurance, on listing the land managers and so forth. Just what exactly why are they on that list? What does it cover as far as they're concerned?
So that's a great question. It covers the chapter activities, so it extends our coverage to the chapter activities. A lot of times, you know, when you're out there doing trail work, they want to have, there's land managers require not only us, but, you know, like a general contractor to have a $2 million liability policy for doing construction. And that's really, that's the big thing, and that's the reason why they want it. It's a land manager requirement, and they're looking at us as more of a contractor than a volunteer organization.
So it's only pertains to the SORBA chapter. It doesn't insure the land manager. Is that right?
I think so. Jim, do you have a good addition to that?
Yeah, many of the contracts, the MOUs that the chapters have entered into with their land managers, the municipalities, suggest that they have insurance of a certain amount and for certain issues, but that their insurer has listed the land manager or the landowner, the county, the municipality, as an other insured. And so they are insured under SORBA's coverage for each of the chapters, but only if SORBA or the chapter does I'm trying to think exactly how we do it, asks the insurer to send them an other insured certification. But the case I'm familiar with, my old chapter, Tar Heel Trailblazers, we worked with 5 or 6 or 7 or so different land managers or municipalities, and we would list each of them as an other insured under the SORBA coverage. And if we requested it, the insurer would send out a certificate showing that that individual land manager or municipality was an other insured under our coverage. And that's what's required under many of these MOUs and contracts that we have. Again, as you said, because they treat us as contractors. And that's typically what a contractor will do when they do work for a government agency.
All right, well, that I still don't understand that, because like we have United States Forest Service, United States agency. How in the world are we insuring somebody like that? I mean, does that affect our premiums at all?
So the Forest
we're
Service
insuring
is
the
a whole
work.
other animal. Where when you work and you have a volunteer agreement with the Forest Service, you are operating as a Forest Service employee. So you're actually underneath their insurance. Like our insurance does nothing with the Forest Service. We have no direct correlation with them.
So do
That's
we need to not list them on our, other insured or not?
No, we don't need to list any of the Forest Service districts or anything that has to do with the Forest Service on our additional insured documents.
That's
Okay.
correct. And it's interesting. It varies by contract, by MOU that you may have with your different land managers. U.S. Forest Service, as Philip said, they treat the clubs and the chapters as employees for purposes of insurance. And they don't expect the employees or the chapters to have coverage. They don't require them to have coverage when they do trail work. And they don't expect them to list those entities, U.S. Forest Service, et cetera, as other insureds. In North Carolina, that's the same for the state, for the state parks. They also cover the clubs and other individuals that may do volunteer work as volunteers and or as employees of the state. And again, we don't have to provide insurance for them or show them as other insureds. But in many, many cases, counties, cities, et cetera, historically, they've treated us as, just because it's easy for them, they've treated us as contractors, which require us to A, have insurance, and B, list them under our insurance as other insureds.
All right, thanks. Can I ask another question, or do you have others you need to get
Yeah,
to?
go for it, Stan.
So this pertains to the dual membership with other chapters and so forth. So each time, if you add a second chapter or third chapter, are you just paying another annual fee of $39 or $50, whatever? Or is it splitting the single membership that you have among those chapters, or what?
You pay an additional amount.
Okay.
So you're still paying dues. You're still paying the normal dues per each chapter.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I don't know who Jay Wynn is, but they had a question that also pertained to the split membership option. That's when you are either renewing or signing up is when you'll add additional chapter memberships. So if somebody's currently a member, say for me, for instance, I'm a member of my local chapter here, camp. I renewed a few months ago with my membership, but right now I was like, oh man, I really want to be a member of Hammer. You know, they're doing a great job up there. They've got this new trail that's being built in the local state park. Really want to support those efforts. I will need to go in and not only join their chapter, but also renew my camp membership. What that does is that extends my camp membership out the additional amount. So I literally renewed in October. So that was 2 months ago. So my membership would start now, but instead of 12 months for camp, it would then need to be renewed 14 months from now. So it gets a little on the convoluted side, but yeah, you start juggling a few things, and they hadn't quite figured that out fully on how that works, but it is an option. Did that answer your question? Hopefully. Yes, sweet, thank you. So Doug asked, does SORBA insurance provide D&O directors and officers insurance for board members? No, it does not. We ask that your chapter provide your own D&O insurance. That is something that we could always talk about changing in the future. We are a malleable organization. Nothing is set in stone. So that if that's something that the chapters want to do, then we can do that. And that leads me into something that I totally skipped over as far as the way that the organization works. Number one, I am your employee. I work for you guys. I don't work for SORBA. Y'all don't work for me. I work for you. So for always keep that in mind when you're asking me questions. Don't feel like you're bothering me. Don't feel like there's an issue. It is my job to work for you. You pay me to do this every day, and I love my job. So please ask me questions. Number two, we have a governance committee, which is the executive board. That's the president, vice president, secretary, state board reps, treasurer, many of which are on this call today. And then we also have a board of directors. And you know who are the board of directors members? Your representatives from your chapter. Typically it's your president, but whoever you send to our annual meetings, to our annual board of directors meetings, is your representative when we vote on things. So that's how you make decisions for SORBA as an organization. Probably should put that in the slide for the next one of these, because that's a really important thing to go over. But I hope that answers the question, who's the third paid employee? We don't have a third paid employee yet. We only have two, myself and Casey. And Casey is a contract employee. She's a 1099. She's not full-time. So currently the only full-time employee is me. That's it. But in a few months, we will have another full-time employee. I'm excited about how that's going to go too. Let's see. Okay, I've answered all the questions in the chat. One of which, well, Dan asked if I was going to have this online and send out the presentation to people. Yes, there will be a follow-up email that will have some links, in particular the really amazing sounding map thing that Casey brought up. That sounds like a really great resource that I'm not even familiar with. This presentation, links to different things on the SORBA website, links to different documents on the SORBA Drive. Yeah, I would like more questions. We have more time, so please, this is your chance to ask me questions.
All right. Hey, Philip. So I know that I've already pinged you via an email, but I am starting the process of lining up venues for our annual race series with Hammer here in Huntsville. And of course, one of the things that the city of Huntsville, which is one of our land managers, is interested in is race insurance and having those forms available before they will agree to sign over the venue to us. When do we anticipate? I know that this is a kind of a first step that we went through last year, working towards having race insurance option, hopefully more affordable race insurance options that SORBA was going to kind of do the negotiations to make those available for the chapters to go and buy. Do we know when that could come out?
Yeah, so I should have your quote specifically in the next day or so. We will renew our insurance in March, and we have shopped around and we're going to move insurance companies. And this new insurance company has offered to create a portal, and that portal will be a location for chapters to go in and to get their own event insurance. It'll be SORBA branded. It'll look like our organization, but you'll go in, you'll put in a little bit of information about your event, the race that you're having, or if you're having a skills course or something along those lines. And they're saying, I haven't seen it to confirm it, but they have said that this will be something that you can enter in your information, and within a matter of days, you'll have insurance. It will be an additional cost for you and your chapter. And I don't know what that cost is going to look like currently, but with that first quote that I should be getting either tomorrow or the next day, Aaron, I should at least have a general idea about what race insurance is going to cost for our events in the future.
Awesome. And do we anticipate that cost is going to be fairly consistent regardless of whether it's a skills clinic, a race, a festival, you know, a shuttle jump jam type fundraiser event, just any events?
I would gather as much. And you know, a lot of times those are based on the number of participants that are going to be there. So I think that it'll be a value based on how many people participate in whatever event it is. But I would imagine, regardless of the style of event, that the pricing will be pretty consistent across the board.
Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Thoughts, questions, ponderings about life? So Garrett said, not a question, but we would love a SORBA team at the next Hill of Truth, which, if you're not familiar with the Hill of Truth, that is going to be in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. I went to that event last year. It's a really excellent race. The Clinch Valley crew puts on a really awesome event, and I would like to see some more SORBA traveling events. And kind of along that line, so if you have been paying attention, we have that Jared's Place Day coming up next month in February. One of our, the Georgia rep, Stewart, recommended this as an event. And, you know, it's honestly, it's low involvement on my end. And I thought, sure, why not? Let's do this. It's gotten a lot of traction, and it's been really cool to see how this goes. And it's encouraging me to try to figure out a way to encourage people to travel across the Southeast and have just different days in which maybe it's an event, maybe it's something else, but, you know, having SORBA people travel to different trails and, you know, have a day in which you just ride with everybody. We're not talking about stuff. We're not having meetings. We're just there to have a good time and ride bikes, because that's what we do at the end of the day. Yeah, next year, Hill of Truth. When is that, Garrett?
Great question. I'm going to default to Lisa. It's the first weekend, the first full weekend in October. October 7th is the 12 Hours of the Hill of Truth, and the 8th is the running race, which Philip did this last year too. Oh, thank you for someone sharing our link to our website.
Travis coming in with a link. Anybody else have any questions? All right. Well, with that, thank you all so much for your time this evening. I really appreciate y'all coming on. We're going to be doing this on a more regular basis, if not once a year, at least twice a year, just to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we have had many times when we are not on the same page. And I'm going to try to rectify that. So again, thank you. I hope you all have a great night. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will see you next time.
Great job. Thanks, Philip. See ya.
Yep. Thanks, Philip.
Thanks, Philip. Get out of here.